This conference will now be recorded.
All right, thank you everybody for joining us today. This is the Parks for All Action Grant education session. We've got quite a few people signed up for today, and so we'll get cracking here. Just a quick introduction of myself. My name is Andrew Exelby. I'm the Parks and Open Spaces consultant at SPRA. I've been here for over 12 years now in this role, and work with various programs such as Communities in Bloom, our Parks and Open Spaces training programs, as well as supporting things like this Parks for All Action grant and working with communities and organizations across the province. I would like to recognize that we are all treaty people. Our programs, services, and supports reach lands covered by Treaties 2, 4, 5, 6, 8, and 10, the traditional territories of the Cree, Dakota, Dene, Lakota, Nakota, and Saulteaux peoples, as well as the homeland of the Métis. Our vision at Sask Parks and Recreation Association is a Saskatchewan where all people experience a better quality of life through parks and recreation. Our mission is to connect, educate, inspire parks and recreation providers. You can follow us on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and LinkedIn for frequent updates and more information about our programs and services. It's important to recognize our funder. We are empowered through funding from Sask Lotteries, and we also manage the recreation section of the Saskatchewan Lotteries Trust for Sport, Culture, and Recreation. Now today we're using GoToMeeting for this webinar. To participate, you can mute and unmute yourself during the question time. You can turn your camera on and off. You can modify your view and look at the list of participants. You can chat if you prefer to chat your questions instead of speaking. And you can also use the raise your hand feature. We have Carolyn in the background providing support to the chat. And I do also have 3 places set aside in the presentation where we'll pause for questions. So if you do have a question throughout the presentation, please wait till one of those three slides where we'll pause and ask for questions. So the agenda for today's meeting, first we're going to review the Parks for All Action Plan. Then we're going to talk about our Parks for All Action grant and the various details of that grant. We're going to talk about how to apply for the grant, some frequently asked questions, as well as some examples of funded projects. So the Parks for All Action Plan, that's really the reason why we're here. It was developed back in 2017, and it was a message, or still is a message, from the Canadian parks community that green spaces are essential to the long-term vision of success for everyone in Canada. It's a collaborative action plan. It was developed in partnership between the Canadian Parks and Recreation Association and the Canadian Parks Council, and it provides a framework that encourages parks at all levels to strengthen relationships with Indigenous peoples, leading to actions built on the basic principles of gratitude, respect, and generosity. Now, the Parks for All Action Plan has 4 strategic directions that are critical to your application to our grant. Those strategic directions are collaborate, connect, conserve, and lead. And it's important to understand how those flow through the action plan. Our strategic directions flow into priorities, which then flow into actions. So in the illustration you're seeing on this page, we're in the strategic direction of connection, with the priority raising public awareness of our parks, and then with a variety of actions listed under that. So one of those actions, for instance, is forge connections between community parks and less accessible wilderness parks by sharing information and coordinating activities and campaigns. So the Parks for All Action grant was developed as our commitment, SPRA's commitment to the National Parks for All Action Plan. We first offered this grant in 2020, and it is a unique commitment across Canada. There is no other grant specifically developed to support the Parks for All Action Plan. So we're quite proud of that. The purpose of the grant is to support that Parks for All vision, and efforts can be local, regional, or provincial in scope. Applications should highlight how people will be engaged and the long-term benefits that are expected. And of course, you can always visit the SPRA Grants and Funding page to read the brochure and apply online, which we'll talk about how to do that. Now, the Parks for All Action Plan vision, and you'll find we're bouncing back and forth a bit between the grant application and the actual Parks for All Action Plan, but it's important because they're both very linked together. So that vision is connected Canadian parks, lands, and waters that support healthy nature, and healthy people, and harmony for generations to come, backed by an active and diverse parks community that cultivates shared goals, mutual respect, and collective action. The history of our grant, it's been quite a high uptake grant since its inception, very popular amongst our members, and we've allocated just over $180,000 to nearly 60 initiatives. So that's a pretty proud allocation. We've helped a lot of different projects. And it's adjudicated by a volunteer subcommittee of our SPRA Parks and Open Spaces Advisory Committee. So I'd like to take a pause there and just ask people if they have any questions about the Parks for All Action Plan or any of the background on the grant. Carolyn, do you see any questions?
No questions yet, Andrew. But feel free if anybody would like to turn their microphones off now and ask a question at this time.
Okay. Well, if there's no questions yet, we'll keep.
Looks like Daniel Castro has their hand up. If you want to turn your mic on, Daniel.
Yeah. So I'm actually currently studying in Alberta, Nate, and I'm just wondering if this would apply to Alberta or if this is only in Saskatchewan.
Yeah, so unfortunately, it wouldn't apply to Alberta. Our member initiative grants are only available to current active members of Saskatchewan Parks and Recreation Association. So based on that membership requirement, it would be a Saskatchewan-based group that would have to apply for the grant. Now, the Parks for All Action Plan certainly is a plan that's endorsed for all of Canada and was developed for all of Canada, but the grant is specific to Saskatchewan.
Sure, sounds good. Thank you.
Hey, Andrew.
Yeah.
Michelle from the town of Herbert doesn't have a microphone on her computer, but she wants to know if regional parks qualify for this grant.
Yes, definitely. Regional parks are one of the active member categories that we have. So as long as your regional park has a current membership with SPRA, then you can apply for the grant. And if you're not sure if your regional park or whichever organization or municipality you're representing, if you're not sure if you do have a updated membership, then you can certainly call our office and we can double check that for you.
We just got another question coming in asking if campgrounds qualify.
That depends on the campground. So if it's I'm not sure if there's a bit more context that goes along there, but if it's a municipal campground owned by a town, then your town would be eligible to apply. If it's a private campground run as a private business, then unfortunately at this time, no, it wouldn't be eligible, simply because you can't be an active member of SPRA. But yeah, so hopefully that answers your question, depending on what type of campground it is. Okay, anything else rolling in there, Carolyn?
I don't think so. Michelle just wanted to clarify the town is a member and they're part of the regional park. So would the regional park qualify if it was a part
So,
of the town?
so in that case, so the regional park is still a separate entity from the town. However, the town could, because the town is involved with the regional park, the town could apply for the grant, and the project could be carried out as a regional park, or at the regional park, because of that partnership relationship. However, if the town wanted to apply for the grant for one project and the regional park wanted to apply for the grant for a different project, both of those organizations are eligible to apply for the grant, so long as they each have a current active membership, and they are eligible to have active memberships with SPRA. So it's kind of your choice, I guess, as far as how you would like to apply.
Thanks, Andrew. I think you answered Michelle's question. We could probably move on, but I just wanted to also let everyone know that if you have an in-depth question, again, we want to get your questions answered today, but feel free to email or call Andrew. He's a fountain of knowledge and will absolutely be happy to answer your questions as well if they're more involved.
Yeah, for sure. Definitely always available to chat. So yeah, moving on to eligibility for the grant. Well, and maybe this is answering some of the questions. But as long as you have a current active membership with SPRA, you can apply. You need to make sure that you don't have any outstanding follow-ups with other SPRA member initiative grants, the Sask Lotteries Community Grant Program, or the Sask Lotteries Trust Fund. This year, up to $5,000 can be granted to each application, and only one application will be accepted per SPRA active member. Initiatives also won't be funded retroactively, and of course, new initiatives are always encouraged. Now, there are some ineligible expenditures, which are pretty well the same right across the board for all SPRA member initiative grants. Those include capital expenses, food-related expenses, subsidization of wages, property taxes and insurance, alcohol, cash prizes, including gift cards, out-of-country travel, and uniforms or personal items. Now, how to actually apply for the Parks for All Action grant. First, you need to visit our SPRA grants webpage, and all of the grants that we have available are listed on this webpage. This is where you should review the brochure. So you'll find on this page, and I'll just circle it here. I've also got the red arrow here, but this is where you'll find the application information. I'm just circling it here. So you'll see it under each grant that we list. We have the link to our online portal for the application form, as well as the grant brochure, a download link there. So I encourage you all to review the brochure if you haven't already. And then once you're ready, you can click on the online portal link. That will take you to a login page. If you already have an account, you can enter your information. If you need to create an account, there's a button here for that, all located right here. There's also a very handy reset your password link, so no need to call us. You can reset your password right there, and trust me, I've used it a few times, so I'm sure it works for everybody. And then once you're logging in, you'll come to the dashboard. Now, I don't apply for our own grants very often, so my dashboard doesn't really show anything here. If you've applied for grants before, you'll likely see a list of active requests as well as some historical requests there. Once you're ready to apply for the grant, if you go to the top of the page, you'll see this apply button right there. You need to click on that, and you'll go on to the next page. Once you hit that apply button, within our online platform, you'll see that list of available grants again. And if you look right at the far right-hand side of the screen, you'll see another apply button right here where the arrow is, and I just circled it again. And so if you click that apply button, you're now into the Parks for All Action Grant form. And this is where you can review your information. Some of it will be automatically populated based on your membership with SPRA, as well as your login information. Some of it you'll need to enter. Please do review it to make sure all of the information is correct. You'll also see an introduction here about the grant. And then we get into the actual sections of the application. So we have the applicant details, the proposal, the budget, the action plan, the checklist, and our verifications at the end. Our application details, our applicant details, are pretty simple. This is where you enter your contact information, enter the name of the active member, and of course, complete a declaration confirming that you have the authority to apply on behalf of the active member. We get into the proposal. This is the meat and potatoes of the application. We need to know the name of your initiative, the amount that you're requesting for funding, the dates, and obviously the scope. You get into that scope in our initiative description. Tell us all about the grant, or tell us all about your initiative, what you would like to do with the grant. Tell us your need and why you think this project or this initiative is needed for your organization or for your community or for your park. And then you select the strategic direction that your initiative meets. Now that's simply a check the box to tell us which of the 4 strategic directions it fits. And then we have a section called Action in Support of Parks for All. And this is where we really want you to link your initiative to the Parks for All action plan. Ideally, you would provide a direct linkage to the strategic direction, the priority, and the action that you believe your initiative is supporting. And then at the end, we have the outcomes, which is impact focus. Tell us about the impact that you think your initiative will have if it's funded. So the next section is the budget. It's important to develop a balanced budget that shows revenues and expenses. Ensure that all the expenditures being proposed for grant funding are eligible. And now it's okay if there's non-eligible expenses included as part of the overall project, but those non-eligible expenses should be offset by self-help or other forms of funding. And make sure you attach your budget spreadsheet. Our online platform does have a template there if you need it for your budget. Now, we'll stress it just because we do get unbalanced budgets from time to time, but it is really important to make sure your budget is balanced. That's a requirement of the grant eligibility. So make sure you have that balanced budget. In this case, we have $5,000 of revenue coming from the grant, $500 from self-help funds, $1,000 from community contributions, for a total of $6,500. Then we have our instructor fees, our workshop fees, advertising and prizes, and refreshments and meals, also totaling $6,500. in this case, the instructor fees and the workshop supplies, as well as advertising and some of the prizes, and the prizes, so long as the prizes aren't cash prizes, would all be eligible. So you have more expenses there than the grant, so we're good to go. And now you get in, after the budget, you get into the action plan. This is where you tell us about your timelines and the deliverables for each time period. And a listing in chronological order is a good approach, with listed dates followed by those deliverables. Get into the checklist. So this is where this is a double check for yourself, just making sure that you've met all those criterias, such as having your membership active. You get into the verifications. These are some check boxes we have at the end. I'm just confirming specific things, such as information being correct and true, confirming that if you don't meet the grant deliverables, you'll return the money, etc., etc. So then you can submit your application. But you don't have to do it all at once. You can also save the application if you need to come back to it and work on it later. Now for this year's Parks for All Action grant, we do have to have everything submitted prior to the end of the day on February 14th, 2024. And we'll be letting people know within about 4 weeks after the deadline of the status of their application. Remember, if you do apply for the grant, that all funds must be used within 12 months of the application deadline date, and funds must only be used for the purposes stated in the application. And of course, we should always be recognizing Sask lotteries. There are follow-up requirements to the grant as well. Follow-ups have to be submitted within 30 days of completing the initiative. The follow-up should include evidence of how the strategic directions were supported that you indicated you were going to support in the application. It should include your final budget as well as the verification of expenditures, and your follow-up should align with your application. If you did have any changes along the way, you should have reached out to us already to discuss those. So we've got another break for questions here. Carolyn, do we see any questions popping up?
Yeah, we just had one come in actually. What are some examples of previously approved applications? There are a couple of questions here. So we'll start with that one.
I'm gonna hold that question because we're gonna get into that next.
Okay.
So,
I guess that same person also asked, is there an eligibility project list?
so various ideas for eligible projects. I think that's what they're getting at.
Yeah.
We do offer a list of possible ideas within the grant brochure. It's the last couple pages of that document, actually. There's so many different projects that could be eligible for the Parks for All Action grant. When you look at the Parks for All Action plan, it's quite a wide-ranging document. So I would suggest starting with that brochure. But certainly if you have any ideas that you'd like to discuss, always feel free to call me and we can bounce ideas around and see where they fit best. We're going to talk about some ideas coming up right away here. So anything else popping up there in the questions?
Nothing in the chat, but if anybody has any questions they'd like to ask you directly, feel free to turn your mics on.
Okay, not hearing anything. I think we'll carry on and we'll have another opportunity to ask questions right then. So this is our kind of frequently asked questions section. So, is my program eligible for the Members Initiative grant? First thing to do is review that grant brochure. It covers all the eligible criteria, ineligible expenditures, and the application process. In this case, with the Parks for All Action grant, we also, like I said, we have that list of project ideas at the end of the brochure. Main thing to remember here is that we aren't going to be funding projects retroactively. Does my idea fit with the Parks for All Action Plan? That's a question people ask a lot. The main thing here, remember to think about those strategic directions and how they flow into the priorities and the listed actions. Now, quite often, we build on that with specific ideas, and I'm hoping this kind of helps people understand how they can write up their application. If you have a specific idea, how does it fit? So in this case, that idea is an educational tree planting workshop. I would say it fits within the connect strategic direction. The priority could be facilitating experiences which connect visitors with nature. The action could be engage with nature-based interpretive programming and experiential learning as powerful environmental education tools for building a culture of conservation. The next idea, hosting a workshop with an elder to educate youth in harvesting poplar bark. That would fit in lead, with the priority building the capability of current and future leaders. The action would be develop grassroots nature-based programs and services, as well as special events to attract various audiences to nurture generations of invested and passionate park supporters. A third idea, hiring a professional to design a new park space in the community. This would fit in Connect. The priority could be facilitating experiences which connect visitors with nature. The action could be support the creation of new parks and the expansion of current parks in order to offer more opportunities for local connections. Now, it is important to note here for the purposes of these examples, I picked one strategic direction. However, everything potentially could support more than one strategic direction. In this case, I've said this fits Connect. It could also fit within Conserve. It could also fit within Lead, because you're leading an important role in creating a park. It could also fit within Collaborate, depending on how many different organizations you have working on this project. So there's always different ways of showcasing where a project fits within the Parks for All Action Plan. And if you're still unsure, call or email us. We're here to help. I can certainly talk through the action plan with you, and we can figure out where that idea fits. Now, how much information about my program or initiative should I include in the application? That's something we get asked a lot. The more information, the better, but there is a word limit, and it's there for a reason. Do try to be concise and clear about what your initiative wants to achieve or what you want to achieve with your initiative. And certainly our adjudicators will appreciate you. Those volunteers go through a lot of applications, and it's important to be clear and concise with your application. Make sure you provide enough information for everyone to understand, but most importantly, make sure you highlight the connection to the Parks for All Action Plan. Now, if approved, when would we find out that we've been approved? As previously mentioned, we target for that 4 weeks after the deadline date. 75% of the grant will be issued once your grant is approved, with the remaining 25% of funds being issued after we accept your follow-up. And now, if approved, when does grant need to be used by? A good general reminder, it's within 12 months of the application deadline date. However, you also have your action plan that you submitted. So if you are deviating from that action plan, you should reach out to SPRA and let us know. The program and the follow-up must also be completed within that 12-month time frame. Now, some different examples of initiatives and projects that have been approved in the past. And I wanted to illustrate here that, we have municipalities apply, we've had provincial recreation associations apply, regional parks apply. All of the different groups that are current active members of Sask Parks and Rec Association can apply for this grant and have done so successfully. So in this case, we've had tree planting and care courses that educate community members. We've had risky play through Indigenous lens projects. We've had a nature connections programming project, kids club expansion, an outdoor adventure day, nature pack lending program, Indigenous storytelling and connection to nature project. We've had promotional videos developed for parks, and we've had professional designs completed for local park and trail systems. So there really is a huge range of different projects that we've been able to support through this grant, and I'm sure all of you have something that's a good fit for the grant as well. So as we wrap up here, the key here, what you need to know, the way to make your application successful, the best way to make sure your application is successful is to make sure that you know the Parks for All action plan. It's very important to connect the activities that you're proposing within your grant application to the Parks for All action plan. The Canadian Parks and Recreation Association has the information about Parks for All available on its website. They also have a PDF download of the actual Parks for All action plan there, as well as another tool called the Action Planner. We also have a number of paper copies of the Parks for All action plan available. So if you do want a paper copy of the action plan for whatever reason, or several of them, feel free to shoot me an email or call me, and we can mail those out to you as well. But definitely the key is to connect your project, your application to the Parks for All action plan, and make sure that you're building that clear connection for our adjudicators. So that is pretty well where we wrap it up for today. Are there any other questions? Okay, I'm not seeing any questions popping up. What's the chat doing? Okay, I see.
Looks like somebody is writing a question.
Yeah, certainly if anybody has questions, feel free to unmute yourself. Yes. Yes, so just to clarify, the question is, we can apply for a designer, but not to build a playground, as that would be capital infrastructure. So yes, there is a fine line between capital expenses and non-capital expenses. So in this situation, yes, you can hire somebody to design a space, but you can't, and the grant is eligible under the grant. However, the grant can't actually fund the actual construction of the space because that would be considered capital. It's not considered wages because when we say that we don't cover wages or payroll, that's meant for your permanent everyday staff. If you need to hire somebody, say you're doing a nature programming day or something like that, where you need to hire an instructor to come in for that, or a tree planting workshop, etc., you can, the expense of bringing in that person that's not on your regular payroll is eligible. So yeah, hopefully that clarifies it. The next question I'm seeing is, would in an educational workshop, would the trees be eligible? In this case, yes, they would be, as long as that is an educational workshop that is working to teach the volunteers and various people in your community. As long as you're bringing in an expert to do that teaching, they need materials. You can't teach a tree planting course without planting trees. Not very well, anyways. So those trees are actually considered to be educational materials that you need for that course, so they would be eligible under the grant. The next question is if you have funded videos for marketing, would logo image design be eligible? I'm thinking yes. I can't think of a reason why they wouldn't be eligible. As long as you can link that overall marketing project to the Parks for All action plan, then it should be eligible. So that's not my phone ringing, but somebody's is. So are honorariums considered gifts?
Sure.
Angela, that is a good question. I'm just thinking, typically an honorarium.
Yeah, so
he's jumping on here too, which might be a good
July
thing.
is the 15th to the 19th.
Yeah, sorry, I'm getting the feedback from that phone call on here too. I'm not sure who that is, but Angela, go ahead.
Like I'm saying, in terms of honorariums, like some of the pieces there were cultural teachings, like Indigenous cultural teachings, and honorarium is a standard expected practice in terms of like you offer tobacco, you offer honorariums for those teachings. So is that considered gifts, or is that separate because it's a cultural piece to providing that programming?
Yeah, those would be eligible because it is an expectation. It is an expectation with that type of programming. So those are certainly eligible expenses. Honorariums are often used, maybe in lieu of a invoice from an instructor as well, or something like that, right? So honorariums are eligible. Reg, can we use the grant to subsidize the summer student wage? Generally speaking, no. That would be our approach on this. Those would be considered your regular payroll. This is meant to support bringing in, a specific expert to deliver a program or deliver a service, such as a design service. It's not meant to support kind of that ongoing employment of somebody. Okay, and the next one is Angela. And the next two, I have no idea what they mean. They just say, show my private messages. But yeah, there we go. I think I have to stop sharing. But anyways, if anybody else has any other questions, please do feel free to chat in there or unmute. Thank you to whoever ended your phone call. So so that, I think that answers everybody's questions. I certainly appreciate your time being here today. We do have the grant open till February 14th, so there's still lots of time to apply, lots of time to ask questions from Casey or myself. And any other questions popping up?
Nothing in the chat right now, Andrew.
Yeah, I don't see any either, so hopefully everybody learned a little bit from the presentation today. And thank you for joining us today. So again, my contact information is here. If you do have any questions, always feel free to reach out and we can have a chat.
And if you would like more webinars on topics like this from SPRA, please do reach out and let us know. Thank you.